Everyone, good morning. Can you hear me? Is the sound good?
Yes.
Okay, it'd be nice to get a hi from everybody. Oh, morning, hi Sharifa, morning. Nice to meet you here. Morning, Oladimeji. Morning, Princess, hi. Morning, Ebube. Morning, Rashid. Carry our day, Olayika. Good morning to you. Udwak, good morning. Deepo, good morning. Edogun Osahon, yeah, I know you. Hi, morning. Uzoma, hi, good morning. Thanks for coming in early. I think I saw you earlier on. Yes, so morning to everybody. Morning. We are very high, Tochukwu, and every other person. Good morning, good morning. So we are pressed for time, and we'll also like to keep to time because everybody is at work today. Today is a Wednesday, it's the middle of the week, and this is when all the targets are like in high motion. So we just came here to have a brief chat with everybody and then, to go back to our places of work. So we'll just jump right in. So my name is Ify, and I work with PaymentLogue, and I'm here with my colleagues from PaymentLogue. And what PaymentLogue does is we're an edtech that is focused on the fintech and payment sector because we believe that there is a dearth of skills in that area compared to the opportunities, that are coming up in the area. If you're on social media, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Instagram, anytime we open our phones, it's one good news after the other. Somebody's raising how many billion, and somebody has a funding of an amount in millions of dollars and all that, and it's interesting. But what we saw was that commensurate to the money, the investment that's coming into the sector, we don't have the relevant skills, and if that is not taken care of, we would see different people, taking advantage of those opportunities than people in Nigeria or Nigerians. So that's what we are here to do, okay? Now, one of the things that people have disregarded because they think it doesn't bother them are payment regulations. And if you notice, our industry, the fintech and payment sector, is very, very regulated. We are just in March. March is, we're in the middle of March, and we already have 2 regulations from the CBN just this year, 2021. And the CBN is not joking. And that's just for payments only. I'm not talking about for fintech. That's just for payments only. So we're just here to say, should you be bothered about payment regulations? Is this something you should be bothered about as you're thinking about the next big idea? Everybody wants to build the next Flutter Wave. Everybody wants to build the next Paystack. Everybody wants to be like CUDA, wants to be like Bitcoins. As you're engaging in all that, spending your data and your time in different hubs, trying to build the next thing, should you have your eye on regulations? And we think you should, and that's what this chat is all about. So jumping right in, I'm just going to give an overview of the stuff we're going to talk about in about 30 minutes. We will not have time to take questions. If you have questions, we have our LinkedIn and our Twitter pages very, very active. So just drop it there and somebody will answer you, okay? So we're going to, I've just done the introduction. We're going to look at the regulator. Who's the regulator? There are more than one person, more than one body that regulates payments in Nigeria. What are the different terms you would hear when you're looking at things concerning regulations? What are the different license types, and how do you verify that a company is licensed for one thing or the other? And then we're going to review one payment license together, especially one that is very important for what we do in payments. We're going to go down to the summary and then any other business, okay? So we'll jump right into the next slide. So who should be interested in payments? Like I said, everybody should be interested in payments, but I didn't tell you why, because if you work in a fintech organization or if you work in payments, anytime anything has to do with regulations, your compliance team and your risk team will be all over the place trying to decode, trying to speak with businesses. But they are not the only ones that should be interested in payments. And this slide is, we're going to talk about that in this slide. So we already have fintech lawyers, risk and compliance, already covered. But I'd like to speak a bit about fintech lawyers because we have a dearth of fintech lawyers in Nigeria. There are a few people that are doing a lot of work, but when it comes to fintech law, breaking down what you have in the regulations as it applies to the activities of companies, we need much more activity, in that space. We have a lot of brilliant lawyers in that space, lawyers having to do with real estate law, maritime law, and it goes on. But specifically for things to do with fintech, I don't see, for my own view, I don't see a lot of activity in that area. So it would be nice to see much more of that. Then we go to product managers, and this is very dear to my heart because our industry is quite erratic and very fast-paced. Like, things change overnight. Who heard of what happened yesterday concerning USSD? How the customers are supposed to pay for USSD now? You can just type me if you saw that the circular from CBN. And as a fintech product manager, a product manager has to do with looking at the product specification and then tying it to the market. Because if you have a beautiful product and nobody's buying it, like, of what use it is, of what use is it? Because it's just like a beautiful picture sitting down somewhere. We don't build products in payments and fintech or any other place for the purpose of building. We build products that can serve a market, and that's why we say that product market fit is very important. So if you've designed a product that one of the channels for the product is USSD, and your business model says that this is how the customers will be able to pay. Now, most of the time, USSD is centered on people that cannot afford smartphones, which means that they are in a particular, category. In marketing, we call it below the pyramid. And now you're now saying that they should bear the costs of USSD. It scatters your business model overnight. And it's something you should, if you're working on a USSD product, it's something you should stop whatever it is you're doing and go back and reanalyze your business model so you can find out if that's product you're building is really worth it at that moment, or if you want to do something else. So it's a game changer, okay? Now let's go to operations. There are lots of regulations and guidelines around operations on the CBN website. And if you've worked in a company that has operations, and a fintech company that has operations, especially when you have gone live and those transactions start coming in, it's very fast-paced. At a point, you would not have time to do most things, and you need to prioritize. Are you prioritizing people that are calling you saying their money is hanging somewhere, or report your partner's need, or settlement, because you're waiting for a file from a bank, and then a law comes out saying that this particular kind of settlement, if it's not out in 24 hours, your company will be penalized. If you're not abreast of those kind of things, you would put your company in deficit. And something like that happened in 2020. Of course, we can't say names here, where a company was not watching some of the operational requirements for a license that they had. And an account was just going, into debits because of that mistake. So as operations, you need to be aware of what is happening concerning regulations. And then, of course, as a business owner, I know a couple of people here are trying to co-found businesses. You need to know what licenses you need, what licenses you don't need. You're partnering with people. There was a time a lot of POSs from strange places flooded the market. And at that point, NIBS, with the backing of CBN, said, if you bring any POS into the market, because we need to check what's happening, we will have to certify the SDK of that POS. And some people had some deals with some POS manufacturers and brought in millions. They had cleared them from the port and everything, millions of money hanging, and those things had not been certified. If you are abreast of regulations, you would tell your Chinese partners, bring in one POS, because according to the regulations available in my market, you need to certify this SDK with the regulator first of all, and then I can do business with you. If your SDK doesn't pass certification, I'm sorry, because it's not usable, I can't deploy it, okay? So that's why everybody, I don't know who I've not covered in this slide, but everybody that is working in fintech should be concerned about payment regulations, not just the risk compliance or the lawyers. So moving on. So now let's look at who is the regulator and what's the role of the regulator. What are they really doing? What is there to regulate? So so we're going to look at the role of central bank in regulations. And central bank is the main institution that regulates payments. I would like to underscore that because they are not the only institution that regulates fintech, but they are the only institution that regulates payments. Okay. We have all other organizations that regulate fintech. Again, I would like to make a sidestep to say, I hope you know that fintech is the main body, the overall body, and payments is a subset of fintech. There are other subsets in fintech as well, but payments is the biggest. And so that's why it looks like we focus a lot on payments. Another arm of fintech that is also gaining a lot of speed, even though it was dealt a big blow by COVID, is the lending sector. So the lending was also picking up as well, not just in Nigeria, but across Africa. But we're focusing on payments. So if you're talking about payments, CBN is your guy. CBN is the organization to pay attention to. And so I'll just read what I have on the slide. The CBN is the main institution that regulates the payments system. It regulates banks, discount houses, the Nigerian Interbank Settlement System, also known as NIBS, the Nigerian Stock Exchange to an extent, because a lot of these companies go to the Nigerian Stock Exchange for an IPO or something. The payment service providers and then switching companies. And these guys remain the key players in the Nigerian payment system. Now, what exactly does the CBN do? Does it regulate for the purpose of regulation? What it does is that it provides the necessary oversight function to ensure that the payment system runs smoothly, that there's efficiency in the system and there's effectiveness in the system. And it also provides the smooth operations of payments, clearing, and settlement. Why clearing and settlement? Because we know that when money moves from your account into your hand at the ATM, from your view, that transaction is not complete. From your view, that transaction is complete. But from a payments view, that transaction is not complete. A transaction in payments is not complete until money has entered into the hands of all the participants, both visible and invisible, that have made that transaction happen. So let me break it down. When you do a transaction on an ATM, there are many people that have come together to make that transaction happen. There's somebody that put that ATM in place. There's somebody that's made your account possible. Your account is housed somewhere where there are lots of servers that make it possible to get into your account by your internet banking or your mobile app at any time. So you can send somebody money at 3 a.m. You can send somebody money at 9 p.m. in the night. Some people have the jobs of making sure that those servers are up and running and are maintained as much as possible. And then some people make it possible for money to move from one bank to another. So there are lots of players in the back. You'll finish your transaction under 10 seconds or something, 30 seconds. You've collected your 20K and you're walking out of the ATM with your card. But somebody needs to say, this money we have collected from IFI, let us share it. It's either you're giving me my own T+1, you must have had those terms before, T+1, or you're giving it to me as settlements, we're settling somehow. So a payment is not complete until there's clearing and settling happening. And the CBN ensures that all these happen smoothly. Okay, let me just sidestep to say, the CBN has been doing this for a while, and they've made notable achievements. And I'll just mention some of them. And as I'm mentioning them, maybe you remember when these laws came into place and what happened and how it made payments easier. So do you remember when you would give a check to somebody and everybody be waiting? Like, I've put in the check, it will take a while, it takes some days. And afterwards, CBN brought out a regulation called check truncation. And what check truncation did, it was that it reduced the time that it would take for a check to be processed, and it made that easier. So if a check was going to bounce, you knew like immediately that it was going to bounce. You didn't have to wait, and then if a check was going to go into an account, in fact, I think right now it's almost immediately, depending on the bank process and maybe how much the money is and how much they perceive, it to be an impact to their liquidity. But it can happen much, much faster than it was before. And now let's talk about Nuban. before anybody could generate, any bank could generate any type of account number, and you didn't really know what happened to, or how it came about, or who it belonged to. But the CBN brought out a convention in a framework and a standard. They brought out a convention named the NUBAN. And the NUBAN said, this is the specification we use for generating account numbers in Nigeria. And riding on the NUBAN, we also had the name validation API, where you could get my account number and call an API, and it produces my name. And okay, this is not Ifi Okoli, this is Ifi Jide Eborg that I'm sending the money to. So I'm sending money to the correct person. CBN did that. Now, another thing CBN did, there are many of them. There's the BVN, we all know the BVN. There's the migration to EMV. That was one of the very good things they did, particularly for payments, payment cards, and made everything much more secure. The industry was crazy then. They had magnetic stripe cards all over the place. Some of you would remember that somebody could take your card and carefully remove the magnetic stripe from your card and put it on another card and walk away. So you'll be getting debit alerts on your phone, but you will look in your bag and you see your card there. That's one method. Another method is that they will just clone the card altogether. So you won't see that your card is disfigured. Your card will still be the way it is, but your card will be doing transactions in Kano while you're in Enugu. And all that's reduced to a very large extent, when the EMV came in. And then we also have the IMTO for remittance. All sorts of people were in the place, trying to do business. A lot of them not good business people, and then the CBN brought in the law and cleaned up all that. It had its own impact that might not be palatable to us, but regulations is what regulations is, and you can't please everybody. Going on to card usage, fraud prevention, everything is on the CBN website. And these are the notable things that they've done for a while back. So let's move to what happens now when you enter into the CBN website. So we said, they're involved in they're involved in making sure that the payment system runs smoothly and efficiently, and regulating the activities of all the stakeholders. We've said, these are the things that they've done. Now, this is almost like the meat of the presentation, where we are looking at what type of things would you see when you enter into the CBN website? What types of things will you see, and who would they concern? So there are 4 major types of documents you see on the CBN website. You see a document called the framework. They released one this year, the framework for QR usage. You see a document called the guideline. There's a document called the standards. Standards are not released often, but they do release them. And then they release circulars often, okay? So let's jump into what these things mean. And I've put screenshots of different types of documents from the CBN website. Everything I have here is from the CBN website. Excuse me. So we'll start with circular. Now, circular is just a letter. Like you have circulars that I think back in the days in former offices, they call them circulars, but it's really a letter or an email, okay? It's a letter informing a close circle of stakeholders or the general public about an update or some new information, an update to an existing stipulation or some new information. So like what I have on the slide, it's saying circular on the exposure draft of new CBN licensing regime. What the circular is saying is that we are thinking about a new CBN licensing regime, and this is why we are thinking about it. And they're still thinking about it, so they are still open. Most of the time, they would send this kind of letters to stakeholders that are involved or that would be affected. And what they are doing is that they are asking for feedback, so it's not yet out, and that's why it's called an exposure draft. But when you see that the document is approved, and in the later slides, I'll talk about that, because sometimes you see something as a draft and you rush to go and implement it. But when the approved document comes out, it might have 4 things that have been approved, while maybe the draft had 7 things. So it's good that when you go to the CBN website to look for what to implement, that you look at the status of the document. Is this an exposure draft? Is this a draft document? Or is this an approved document? Okay. If you look, I'm not sure how large my screen is, but the document I'm referring to now, the circular, this one, if you look across it at the back, you can see it's written draft. And that's how you know something has not been approved. And if you look at the other ones, you see approved across them. So that's what a circular is really, a letter informing a closed circle of stakeholders or the general public, like the one for Bitcoin was to the general public. So, you know, it was out there telling everybody, we've said something about this Bitcoin before. This is not a new regulation. We are now saying it again that we do not approve that this kind of token or this kind of store of value be used in Nigeria. Now let's move on. Then we now have the framework. Now a framework is quite structured, and it's very advisable that the people that are affected by that framework adhere strictly to the framework. If you've seen a framework when they're doing a building, you know, it sort of puts everything in a particular place. It's structured. So it's saying this is what you should do. This is what we are not, it's not a nice to have. We are saying this is what you should do. You know, so a framework has clearly defined policies and controls to be implemented. Another document that looks like the framework is the standard, but the standard is a more technical document. And this should, if you're in the development team, if you're in the product team, you should be concerned when standards come out. They don't come out often, you know, but when they come out, they have some type of technical information, and I'll just get to that in a bit. I just wanted to tell you that frameworks and standards are almost related. Now, a framework has clearly defined policies and controls to be implemented. So let's look at that snippet we have there. That's actually the framework that came out for QR. So it's saying this framework provides regulatory guidance for the operations of the QR code payment services in Nigeria. It aims to ensure the adoption of appropriate QR code standards for safe and efficient payments services in Nigeria. This framework therefore stipulates acceptable QR code standards for implementing QR payments in Nigeria. What this means is that if you are doing QR in Nigeria, previously you could do anything, and there were big players that, you know, brought in their standards. But going forward, if you're going to release anything concerning a QR code as a method of payment and you don't adhere to this framework, you are looking for trouble. That's what it just means. And most of the time, the CBN is an intelligent organization. They don't just come up with these things. I'm sure they must have discussed with the incumbents. That's what they normally do, would do. They did that for EMV. I'm sure they will do that for QR as well. You know, discuss with the incumbents, I mean, MasterCard, Visa, Verve, whoever it is that has a QR in operation, to say, what do people have and how can we come together to form something that, you know, it would be interoperable amongst all of you, as well as fit what we want for Nigeria. So that's framework. I've spoken a bit about standard. I'll just show you how a standard is a bit more technical. So that snippet I have there says, if you're a DMB is a deposit money bank. Your sort code should be letters. You can see how very specific it is. If you're in the development team or you're in the product team and you go and design reports with sort code that has numbers, you can see how you've already started taking your company to where they'll be paying fine. You would have to adhere to this because it's a standard. And it says that ABC is a 3-digit code assigned by CBN, and then the rest of it, position DE, you know, FGH would be stuff allocated to the state and all that. So they will normally have that. For Nuban, we also had something like a standard saying this is the exact kind of algorithm you will use to calculate account numbers. So it's very specific. You can't go and do your own. No matter how much Java or Python or PHP you know, you cannot develop your own. When standard comes out concerning a particular thing, you would have to adhere to the standard. Now, a guideline, how does a guideline differ? A guideline is a guide. It's not very specific, even though there are things that you must obey, but there are, most of the time, is some wiggle room. You know, you would see an interswitch interpreting their own in a particular way, but adhering to the guidelines. You would see a Flutterwave interpreting theirs in a different way, adhering to the guidelines, you know, as well. There's something I like to say about guidelines, especially for the founders and then the would-be founders, co-founders, people that are trying to create in the space. what I've noticed over the years, and this is my 14th year in payments in Nigeria and West Africa, what I've noticed about the guidelines is that when you study those documents carefully, you would notice, or you would recognize, you'll be able to spot areas for innovation. Most of the people that have come up with new things that are useful, to the market space would be from interpreting guidelines, because sometimes a guideline comes out and then the banks are busy and they cannot do anything about it. Let's say that there's a guideline that said you should be able to refund all dispute resolution complaints in 24 hours. While me and the banks do that in sometimes a month, you'll be begging for your money to be returned to your bank account. Somebody will be like, so maybe I should get somebody that will be able to tell me what this problem is about and why banks can't do that in 24 hours. Because for guidelines to come out like that, that means people have complained and complained and complained, and CBN has said, hey, we are now saying that this thing has become a problem and you must fix it. Return people's money in 24 hours. And you now develop a smart system that is able to detect a transaction that doesn't go well and puts that transaction in somewhere else. And you go and now offer it to the banks. And they're able to detect, maybe subject to a human being now skimming through to verify, but they're able to detect in a shorter amount of time transactions that have gone bad and should be, that did not conclude successfully and should be reversed, okay? I've spent a lot of time on this slide. Well, it's the biggest slide. So let's go to license types and companies. So we've seen the different types of documents that can come out from CBN. Guidelines. Can anybody help me with any other one in the comments? Guidelines, what else? If you've been listening, and I know you have been. Secular is good, secular, yeah. Everybody likes the secular. Okay, standard framework, beautiful. Nice, nice, nice. Thank you. Okay, so you've all been attentive. Thank you. So let's move to this slide, okay? Excuse me. So we're going to look at license types and companies. Now, there are three types of licenses. A license is CBN saying you are allowed to operate like this in this market. That's what a license is, basically. And there are three types of ways CBN can say, I have approved for you to operate in the market in this way, either as a switch or as a payment gateway, a payment processor, a third-party provider, a third-party service provider. When somebody says, oh, we've gotten our license, they mean three different things. Number one is that they've actually gotten the full operating license, which would be a document that will ask them this, that, and the other. It normally takes a while to fill, and that's where you see your compliance team and your legal team running around trying to make it happen together with your technical team, because you have to fulfill a couple of things, about the business. You have to provide some information about the business, and then after all that, it takes a while, and then they'll give you the license. Most of the time when a license comes, people celebrate because it's like, yay, we have reached the approval status now. Now, there's something else that comes out faster than a license would come out, and it's called an approval in principle. You would never really hear people say approval in principle. You always hear the words AIP. Oh, we got our AIP. So you're working with a founder, maybe in a hub or an accelerator, and like, good news, last week we got our AIP. It actually means that CBN has said, I've not finished with all the documentation, but so far, what I've seen is good, and you can actually start operating as a switch. You can actually start operating as a super agent. You can actually start operating as whatever it is you've applied for. So it's called an approval in principle. Now, there's a softer letter. Sometimes it's just product specific, not necessarily business specific. And it's called a letter of no objection. And the regulation we are going to review together, you would see, I think, something about that for the letter of no objection. So a letter of no objection, they're saying, we do not disagree with you. We're not saying we should, but based on what you've told us about this thing you're doing, we do not disagree that you shouldn't operate. So carry go, continue operating. Okay, so sometimes for some things you would need a letter of no objection. Now, different companies would have these type of licenses in different areas, and the place to go get them is the CBN payment system /PSP. So that will tell you all the payment service providers in Nigeria that are licensed. So if somebody's saying we've gotten our license and their name is not there, you know they are not telling the truth. Same thing with the international money operators, because now people are doing a lot of businesses that involve moving money from Nigeria to Ghana or somewhere else, you know, and you want to know this person that you're dealing with, if the person is licensed to operate, before you give your money to the person on behalf of your client and the person goes into thin air, and you are left with your clients to refund their money somewhat. So you want to go to this place to go and check that this person is a licensed international money operator. And then the last line is the PSBs, the payment service banks that have been licensed already. So I don't know if you can you see my system? Let me go to the CBN website and show you. So this is CBN website. And I'll just go to payment systems and I'll just go to payments. Can you see the system?
No, we can only see your slides.
Oh, okay. So that means I should stop sharing, yeah? Let me stop sharing. And I think I need to now share. Yeah, so I think you should be able to see it. So can you see it right now?
Yes.
Okay, so this is where I'm talking about. So you go to payment systems. So just type www.cbn.gov.ng, and then this is the tab you're interested in, the payment system tab. And then you go over here, and you can now see a list of the people that have been approved. It's not secret, it's not a secret, it's public information. So we are allowed to discuss it. If your company is not here, maybe they are using some other person's license under an agreement, okay? So for mobile money operators, those are the guys that are the mobile money operators. The PSSP, those are the guys that are licensed as PSSP. You can see names that you are aware of, you know, that are doing stuff that everybody knows about. Same thing in PTSPs, are the payment terminal service providers that provide applications for POS terminals, as well as maintenance and all that. Card schemes, super agents, switches, third-party processors, clearing houses, and then it talks about the various frameworks, policies, guidelines, and circulars, okay, that have been issued by CBN. Now, if you go to the circulars, what I notice is that for the circulars, it looks like they've stopped updating the circulars in the circular tab. So that's something to note if you want to start coming here often. The last update is 2018, but there have been circulars since then. But the circulars are all updated, it looks like, in somewhere new. So they're updated in the guidelines. Okay, so here you would see, can you see circular on pre-authorization of cards? And this was in 2019. So ideally, it should have been in the circular tab, but it's all here. So I'll just recommend that you come to get your information all here. It's, you know, it's organized properly and then it's sorted. So we can see that they've already released 2 in 2021, and they did quite a bit during the lockdown when we were in the COVID session. So that's that for this CBN website. So let's go back to the slide. Yeah. And then we round up because we have like 5 minutes to go. Okay. Can you all see the slides back? Faye, you will need to help me respond. Can you see the slides?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, okay, people are responding. Thanks. Okay, so we're going to round up. I think in rounding up, we will just look at, somebody is asking if they can have the slides. I'll allow the program manager answer that. So all these things, it will not be nice that I just tell you about everything and we don't look at one regulation together. I think we should look at one regulation together, even though we are pressed for time. So the regulation we're looking at together is one that came out last year, towards the ending of last year. And why this is important for us to look at, especially in this kind of forum that is not necessarily bank, financial institution, but individuals that like to learn more, is this is the kind of looking at comments, this is the kind of regulation change that will affect you if you're thinking about an idea. So the CBN brought out a new license categorizations for the Nigerian payment system. And I just have 4 highlights here, but I think I'll go to the screen, to the screen where we have that and look at it. So I'll just have four highlights for us to discuss. Now, the first thing that you would notice in this document, it was a circular that is updating a previous guideline. So you understand these terms right now. A guideline came out saying these are the kind of licenses that we have in Nigeria if you want to do anything payments. They now brought out a circular updating that previous guideline saying, hey, hello, hold up. We have new considerations for licenses, and some of the considerations was actually increasing some of the amounts. Like right now, if you want to do a PAGA type kind of business and you're not partnering with PAGA, maybe in some kind of business relationship under their license, if you say, no, I want my own, when I discuss payments with people in Nigeria, they're always like, I want my own MasterCard, I want my own Visa. A license for PAGA, the PAGA type kind of business, is 2 billion. That's what it is right now, 2 billion naira. Same thing with the InterSwitch, Team Apt, ARCA payments, UPSL type kind of business for switching and processing, 2 billion. If you don't have 2 billion, you think about another idea. Okay, so moving into the license now, into the circular. So the CBN now recognizes 4 broad categories of payment licensed entities in Nigeria. And then on the next, this next pane for more information. So they recognize regulatory sandbox, which is interesting, very beautiful, because this encourages innovation. And there's something, that is in the works. I think they've released a draft for open banking. So anybody that will want to participate in open banking would have, a sandbox to test and all that. And then they also recognize MMO. I just want to say that there are 2 kinds of MMOs. There are the non-bank MMOs like the PAGA, and they are the bank MMOs. So that's why a bank can do the PAGA type kind of business, because they actually have the same license. I'll speak a little bit about, okay, that's the next point. So let me just finish this point. So we have switching and processing, the guys that have switches, like the InterSwitch, UPSL, ARCA, Team Apt. And then there's a new type called the payment solution services, which is where a lot of people would like to, play in. Now, the second important highlight, there are many things they said in that document, but I couldn't put all of them here for space and time to discuss. It's already 11:45. Now, only MMOs are permitted to hold funds. Again, speaking back to business investors, business owners, investors, and product managers being interested when a regulation comes out, because it affects anything you'll be working on. So you're working on something, you're saying, oh, my product collects money from people and then shares it, and then we'll keep it in an account. Hold on. If you don't have partnership with a bank, which is a very long thing to do these days, or with an MFB that has the same kind of licenses with the bank, or an MMO, which is the PAGA type kind of people. You saw all of them in that list. So it's not, I'm just saying PAGA because I guess that's the name most people can relate with, and he might be, or that business might be the longest, staying in that sector. So if you don't have any partnership with those kind of people, please, you can adjust your idea to accommodate something else, because regulations will be coming for you. Okay, so if you're doing business with any entity that is holding funds, confirm that they have this license, or at least they are partnering with somebody that has this license. And from business relationship, confirmation is not by mouth. We don't confirm by mouth. There should be documents that should be signed that should show you that they're authorized to do this kind of thing. Okay, if not, it is MMM business. Now, collaborations between any of the entities mentioned in this document. Sorry, I didn't complete that thought, but let me just say it. Collaboration between any of the entities mentioned here on a new product has to be approved by the CBN. So a pay stack, for example, is going to do something with a bank, you have to go to CBN. And I don't think this is good. I would think that this regulations came out last year, but I would think that the people that are concerned, you should have, written to protest, to CBN, whatever way they can. Because it will slow down innovation, because every single thing, I mean, see our space and all the things that happen, and every single thing you do that is new needs to go to CBN for approval. But from a regulatory perspective, you understand why CBN wants to do that, so that they can just understand, because innovation, especially in fintech and payments all over the world, is happening at a very fast pace. And you just want to know when people are helping you to scatter what you have arranged. Then the last point here is a new license category called the Payment Solution Services, PSS. And PSS is made up of 3 different licenses that used to exist differently before, but they are now together. Even though they are together, somebody can still, or a business can still opt for a subcategory. So PSSS license allows you to do super agent activities, PSSP activities, and PTSP activities all in one. And it's 250 million right now to do that kind of business that has everything, yeah? But let's say you just want to do one. So the PSSP business, that is like the paystack type kind of business. I don't know if they've added another license to what they do, but that's originally what they started with. Right now, I think it's 100. The cheapest of them from the document is the super agent license. Okay. So there are other things in that document as well. And I don't know if we really don't have time, so I can't go to the website to get it. And that's really it. That's it. So what we've done today is we've looked at who the regulator is, again, noting their achievements over the years that has helped to develop and maintain the sanity of the payments environment in Nigeria. I know we yab CBN a lot, but the truth is that there are many things they've done compared to how the industry was before, that somebody can just come up and say, hey, me and my brothers and my sisters, we all have a bank, and you put your money in there, and then one day the bank is no more and you're looking for your money. Some of your parents have those kind of stories, okay? So things are much better than they were before. So we've looked at the different types of information CBN sends out and how to approach them. What kind of documents would be very useful to what kind of people, We've looked at the different license types and how to verify who is licensed. And we've verified, or we've reviewed one regulation together with the regulation for the new payment license types in Nigeria. What else? Somebody saying, how can we get in touch with CBN for those of us that are outside Nigeria? What do you mean by getting in touch with CBN? Do you mean to apply for a license or something like that? CBN has a Twitter handle, so I think you can also send something to them, but that information, I'm not so sure. Apart from sending an email to them, I'm not so sure. But I will note it and then see if I can put it up on the LinkedIn website, on our LinkedIn page. So what else can you get? For product managers, you can get payment statistics on the CBN website. But I would like to say that it's not updated always. I'm not sure why. I would understand why. Data crunching and analyzing and all that to bring it out in a timely manner is a lot of work. But you could get at least a semblance of some type of e-payment statistics on the CBN website. That's also a very important document that should have been implemented last year, but I guess COVID and everything, happened and it wasn't. It's a very important document documenting what the CBN's vision is for the payment space for a while. It was brought out a long time ago, and it's called the PSV 2020. Now, a lot of things they are doing right now and a lot of things they would do are contained in that PSV 2020. If you are here to play in the space long term, you want to review that document, okay? And that's it. Faye, over to you. I hope we were able to gain one or two things in this brief chat, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ife. Do you mind skipping to the next slide, please?
Yeah, the comments are in my way. Okay, yeah, the comments are out. Okay.
All right. Thank you everyone for joining. We understand that this is middle of the day for everyone, so thank you for taking the time to join us today. I mean, we have other amazing, insightful, interesting sessions coming up. I imagine that a lot of people found this really useful and really insightful. First, on Sunday, the 21st, we have an open house discussion, basically talking about career success in fintech. It's open to everyone. It's free. So feel free to join us if you're wondering about a career, if you're wondering about what the outlook of this industry looks like. We've been putting all the information on our social media sites. Feel free to follow us at the PaymentLogue on Twitter and PaymentLogue on LinkedIn. And then on the 27th, we have 27th of March, that is, we have an actual course. This is a paid course. It's 15,000 naira. It's ABC of payments. Basically, every rudimentary information, detailed rudimentary fundamental information about payments, what you need to know, what the industry looks like, infrastructure, and a lot more. Feel free to join us. We look forward to welcoming you in all our future events. If you need to reach us, the ABC of payments is 15,000 naira depot. If you need to reach us, you can always reach us via Twitter, LinkedIn, or via email at info@thepaymentlog.com. Look forward to seeing you on Sunday for the open house, and of course at the course and in future events that we hold as PaymentLogue. Thank you, folks. As we said at the beginning, we will not be taking questions at this time. If you have any questions, just reach out to us on social media or via email, and we'll be sure to get back to you. All right. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. See you at future events.